This is the January 15th combined meeting of the Pine-Richland School District. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Before we begin with the roll call, tonight we have a new board member joining us, Dr. Matthew Mihalik. Congratulations. Welcome aboard. We appreciate that you stepped forward. And Mr. Pat Clare will administer the oath of office now.
One of the most important things about being a school director is knowing where the photographer is. Where she wants you to be. So if you would just raise your right hand and repeat after me, you'll supply your name. I
Matthew Mihalik,
do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will support and obey and defend
that I will support, obey, and defend
the Constitution of the United States
the Constitution of the United States
and of this Commonwealth,
and of this Commonwealth,
and that I will discharge
and that I will
the
discharge
duties of my office
the duties of my office
with fidelity.
with fidelity.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Put the hands up.
Thank you, Dr. Mihalik. And Dr. Mihalik was chosen by the board last week from members of the community. We appreciate you stepping forward and welcome you aboard. Roll call, Barb.
Mr. Lyons.
Here.
Ms. Mizbach. Mr. Kashani.
Here.
Dr. Campbell.
Here.
Mr. DiTullio.
Here.
Ms. Goebel.
Here.
Dr. Meyer.
Here.
Mr. Moy.
Here.
Dr. Mihalik.
Here.
Thank you.
Next item on the agenda is recognition of visitors. Ms. Hathorn. I'm sorry, recognition of visitors. If there's anyone like misstatement, there's no one here. Correspondence, Barb.
Christine Anderson emailed the board regarding teacher websites. Tanya Conti emailed the board regarding school delays. And Laura Plavisic emailed the board in support of Region 3 vacancy candidate Robert Wiskaman.
Thank you. And now, Ms. Hathorn, recognition of achievement.
Tonight we'll start with student recognition from the middle school. That's where more than 150 students are busy putting the final touches on the middle school drama program called Once Upon a Mattress, and that's an adaptation of the fairy tale The Princess and the Pea. Performances will be held February 1st through the 3rd, and if you want some more information about tickets, visit pinerichland.org/msmusical for complete details. 8th grader Joshua Katruska earned first place in the annual middle school geography bee. He is taking the exam to see if he qualifies for the state competition. You can see the top 10 winners of the middle school by visiting pinerichland.org/PRMS. Several students were selected to represent the district at the Pennsylvania Music Educators District Band performance on January 11th through the 12th at Upper St. Clair High School. They include talented seniors Shannon Donahoe, Troy Rollins, Jack Shannon, and Daniel Parker, and junior Christopher Mustovic. Students from across the tri-state area showed off their skills at Pine-Richland at the Air Force Junior ROTC's annual drill competition in December. Nearly 200 cadets from several schools competed in a variety of categories. PR earned 3rd overall and many other awards. You can also visit the high school website for those details. Pine-Richland High School students are ranked in the top 32 as they compete in the 17th Annual International Public Policy Forum. This is the only contest that gives students around the world the opportunity to engage in written and spoken debate on issues of public policy. And students making up the team this year include seniors Mahek Sethi, Molly McCarthy, and Tyler Villajaste. And Pine-Richland is the only team in Pennsylvania to move on in the competition. And as I told you before, the teams are debating the topic, resolved international climate accords for greenhouse gas emissions should adopt binding enforcement mechanisms. So big topic. Good luck to them. The Pine-Richland football team will be recognized at the high school varsity boys basketball game on February 9th for an outstanding season and earning the PIA state championship title. In addition, senior Phil Jakovic participated in the Army All-American Bowl on January 6th, while the West beat the East. It was a great honor for Phil with a record crowd of 41,017 spectators. Coach Eric Kasparogas was also named an All-American Army Bowl Coach of the Year finalist. Also, the varsity wrestling team are third place in the Bowood Invitational Competition, January 6th. Many individual wrestlers earned placement, with Cole Spencer earning the most outstanding wrestler of the tournament, and you can also visit pinerichland.org/athletics for those details. We were going to have board appreciation tonight, and we apologize, but because of the weather, we asked the students to stay at home, but we will move that to a later date. We had some great presentations for tonight, so we do want to thank you for your service, and this year's a little different because we have 5 new members, so they had a little inspiring presentation for you, but we'll table that and hold it for the future.
Yeah, in fact, we have a couple of things up our sleeve also for the board that involve students, and so we're going to plan that out maybe over a couple of meetings, and so we think it'll be exciting, and hope you respect us keeping them at home and not putting them on the road for tonight, so thank you for that. Now, there is a goodie bag, however, that required some planning, and part of it I'd like to speak to at some point, but I'll let Barb. You want me to do it? Okay. So if you could look in the bag at the pin, it's another example of something that's pretty cool. So if you take a moment to look at that, we are in our 60th year. So the celebration will begin, and if you look at that 60, you see the ram head that was designed by Vincent Thurl, one of our art teachers. And so with Rachel and Vincent and Barb and putting all that together, we're able to subtly put the ram in that celebration. So it's exciting for our district. We have more ideas and plans for celebrating the 60th, but as a board member, we hope this is something that you can wear, certainly anytime you're representing the district, or you're headed somewhere and you want to stimulate conversation, it gives you an opportunity to put that forward. So, and there's a note written as well to each of you from Mrs. Williams. And we, on behalf of the senior leadership team, the public, could be community, public, staff, it is very difficult to imagine the role and responsibility of a board member until you're in that position. You're exposed to a significant amount of information. To be engaged, to understand, to read, to ask questions, to govern is not simple. It requires the ability to have an opinion on many things, but sometimes keep that, because that opinion may not be the opinion of your role as a board member, and you balance all of those things and you do it extremely well. So we're appreciative of your commitment of time, service to support the mission of the district and balance all of that. So thank you on behalf of all of us. And again, we'll have student-based celebrations of the board and other groups in an upcoming meeting. Anybody want to add anything? Okay. The pin's pretty cool.
Thank you.
Yeah.
The pin is awesome, so thank Mr. Thurl from us as well for that design. That is innovative and wonderful. I'll wear it with pride. PR pride? Okay, you got it. Item 1.06 is our minutes for approval. I'll make a motion to approve the minutes as listed.
Second.
The motion's made and seconded. Is there any discussion? All those in favor say yes.
Yes.
Yes. Opposed? Motion carries. Item 2.01 is our strategic plan update. Dr. Miller?
Sure. School start times is the topic. What we've done this week for this agenda is tried to put a summary of the major points of this topic in public content so that it is there. We tied it back to the presentation that was given at a committee meeting in the fall. So actively right now, we are studying the option of shifting all schedules later. And this means that representatives of STA building administration at all of our various levels, so primary, Eden Hall, middle school and high school, members of SLT, liaisons with, for example, Mr. Shoup in athletics and some of those activities that happen. We're literally looking at what happens if and when we were to shift our schedule back. The underlying idea is, if we were starting a school from scratch and didn't have any constraints, we wouldn't choose to begin the day with the first bus stop at 6:15 and the first class at 7:20. But there's a lot of factors that impact how we deliver school, and that's just the way it has been. So the question that's driving this is, and if you've worked with adolescents or have had adolescents at that age, they're not in their optimal learning mode at that time. But it's a challenge to contemplate all the ripple effects of any potential change. So we're only in study mode right now. That started with confirming all of the details around our current bus stop times, our current school day times, the transition periods necessary from one bus run to another. STA is working in a technological sandbox to look at the impact of a delayed or shifting back of those times. It's not just a Pine-Richland. If we were only concerned about students that reside within our two townships attending the public schools, it would be a much simpler process. But every consideration for us has a rippling effect to the 40 different private or parochial schools that we bus to. And so any of those changes we have to really explore, and we're not comfortable bringing forward information until we feel good about the accuracy of it. So that's where we are right now. If I had to give a perspective at this point, I do not believe we will have a recommendation that has considered different options that would impact the start of next school year. I just don't feel that we'll have the time and ability to focus unless we were to drop other strategic issues. So I do believe we'll continue to pursue this, but if we were to explore a more significant change, such as flip-flopping of times, I mean, we really have a lot of work to do there. And I would prefer not to bring a recommendation forward until we've explored at least a few different things and feel good about it. So we're working on it. We do believe there may be some possibilities, but we want to make sure of our information before we do anything else. So any questions at this point? Sort of just a finger on the pulse of where we are right now. Okay, thank you.
I would refer members of the public and the board to the presentation from October, which has links to outside resources as well as a summary of some of the data on start times. Also, for the board's benefit, I will mention, and the public as well, on Monday, January 22nd, Dr. Peter Franzen, who's a professor of psychiatry at Pitt, will be speaking on this topic, the impact of school start times on adolescents in the Hampton High School auditorium. We knew at the outset that we're not alone in examining this question, and Hampton is hosting a public information session. Again, that's on January 22nd. We'll include that in a weekly update for board members. Mr. Kashani, Finance, if you could.
Item 3.01, motion to approve the financial reports dated January 15th, 2018, and accounts payable dated January 15th, 2018, in the amount of $596,306.16, and paid accounts for December and January in the amount of $5,674,496.27 as listed.
I have a second. Motion's been made and seconded. Any discussion? All those in favor say yes.
Yes.
Yes. Opposed? Motion carries.
Item 3.02, motion to approve the budget transfers in the amount of $68,663.
Do I have a second? Second. Is there any discussion? All those in favor say yes.
Yes.
Yes. Opposed? Motion carries.
Item 3.03, motion to exonerate the local real estate tax collectors for Richland Township and the Township of Pine for the 2017 tax duplicate and to turn over the 2017 delinquent tax listings to the Jordan Delinquent Tax Service for collection.
Is there any discussion? All those in favor say yes.
Yes.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Item 3.04, motion to approve a resolution pursuant to Section 311D1, Special Session Act of 2006 certifying Pine-Richland School Board will not raise local taxes at a rate to exceed the school district's Act 1 index of 2.4% for the 2018-2019 school year as presented.
Second.
Is there any discussion? All those in favor say yes. Yes. Opposed? Motion carries.
Item 3.05, motion to approve the 2017 Pine-Richland School District Property Tax Rebate Program Resolution as presented.
Second.
Is there any discussion? All those in favor say yes.
Yes.
Yes. Opposed? Motion carries.
Item 3.06, motion to approve the following individuals as check signers for the accounts listed. Pine-Richland High School Student Activities. Ms. Nancy Bowman, Principal. Ms. Laura Burns, Assistant Principal. Ms. Stephanie Saviller, Assistant Principal. Pine-Richland High School Athletics, Ms. Nancy Bowman, Principal. Mr. Joshua Shoup, Athletic Director. Ms. Laura Burns, Assistant Principal. And Ms. Stephanie Saviller, Assistant Principal.
Is there any discussion? All those in favor say yes.
Yes.
Yes. Motion carries.
Item 3.07, motion to continue Pine-Richland School District's membership in the Allegheny Intermediate Unit Joint Purchasing Board, which will be empowered to make bulk purchases of selected items for 2018, with Dana Kirk named as the representative and Rachel McCarthy as an alternate to the Joint Purchasing Board.
Second.
Is there any discussion? All those in favor say yes.
Yes.
Yes. Opposed? Motion carries.
Item 3.08 is just an informational item. We have some upcoming Finance Committee meetings from 6 to 7 on February 19th, which is President's Day, April 16th, and then a May meeting that has yet to be scheduled. And then this schedule will allow us proper timing for the budget approvals, which will be the vote on the proposed final budget during the April 16th meeting. And we have to allow 30 days between vote and the final budget, and then vote on the final budget during the June 4th meeting. And definitely encourage everyone to make those meetings, to attend those meetings if you can.
Thank you, Mark.
Welcome.
Dr. Meyer, academic achievement.
The high school and middle school program of studies were reviewed and approved annually at the June 15th Academic Achievement Committee. Dr. Pasquinelli, Mrs. Bowman, Dr. Christophe, Mr. Boyer, Ms. Silver, and Mrs. Burns provided an overview of the proposed changes to the 2018-2019 program of studies at the high school and middle school.
And could you make the motion to approve?
I make a motion to approve the programs of studies.
Second.
Motion is made and seconded. Any discussion? All those in favor say yes. Yes. Opposed? Motion carries.
If I could just make a brief comment. At the meeting, we had Mrs. Bowman, we had Mrs. Burns, Mrs. Saviller, we had Dr. Christophic, and we had Mrs. Kathy Thomas, Department Chair. It is with great pride to listen to the professionalism, the knowledge of the staff members who presented, the amount of work that has been done on the program of studies in recent years. It's just really remarkable to hear the differences, the refinements, the improvements. So thank you to them and to Dr. Pasquinelli specifically for his leadership of that work over that time.
I appreciate it. Should we count that as a review of the meeting?
Yes.
Does that suffice? Any words to add, Mike? We're good?
I would just add one component of the meeting was a discussion about crosstown agreement for the Air Force Junior ROTC program. For the public's awareness, we have had a program now for a number of years, but one of the regulatory requirements of an AFJ ROTC program is that for a school our size, we have to meet a minimum cadet total enrollment of 100. We have never been able to reach 100. In fact, we have hovered in the 60s, or I think it's 71, which is our number this year. Unfortunately, that law and those requirements do not speak to the quality of the program. They speak to a minimum number of cadets required. And for a school our size, that's a challenge. And for many schools our size, that's a challenge. We have been on probation with efforts to improve that number. We have done taken a lot of actions at the building level with parents to do that. Unfortunately, we've not seemed to be able to get over that 60 to 70 number. One of our final options was to pursue something called a crosstown agreement, and that is something we're pursuing. We're fortunate to have a local school district, high school, just a few miles up the road, and we've been in active communication with them, and there'll be a presentation tomorrow night at that board meeting to discuss this. We're hopeful that some sort of an agreement through that option will be viable for that school district, and then to allow us to continue the program, because the impact is an impact to the students involved, but they very much serve our community and school as well. There's a positive impact to our high school, to our whole community through the AFJ ROTC program. So that's really not the program of studies per se, but it was a component of the meeting that I think is worth attention and public awareness as well.
Can I add just one quick comment? So the board's approval of the program of studies officially kicks off our scheduling season. So I always like to just mention, as our community views these board meetings, that we ask families to really take the time and work closely with teachers, with administrators, with counselors. We call this the heavy lifting season of the scheduling process. If we do our work now and we do it well and we communicate, which we're really trying to do through the program of studies and the scheduling process, we'll get students to those courses that are right for them and get them in a place so come August 18, 19, they're ready to go and they're in that right course. So we encourage families to spend time in the program of studies, reach out to teachers, reach out to counselors, reach out to administrators if you have questions, so we can get the right students in the right courses.
Item 4.03, upcoming Academic Achievement Committee meetings will be scheduled March 5th, 2018, and as on academic resources. And April 30th, 2018 will be an in-depth program review, and please note there will be no school board meeting after that.
Thank you, Carol. Dr. Campbell, Student Services. I'm sorry, Mr. DiTullio, Buildings and Grounds.
Item 5.01 is a motion to approve the authorization of change orders to the miscellaneous athletic field athletic improvement projects at a cost not to exceed $7,000. There's a lot of information attached, but Dana and I talked quite a bit, and there's a lot of background here if everyone wants to dive in, but the basis of it is when you're doing construction, things pop up, and I think to get it down to a not to exceed $7,000 is a very good job, and I think it's actually going to be less than that based on some conversations that we've had.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Is there any further discussion?
The only, I'm cool with the amount. This is a pretty, so removing bulkheads is a pretty standard thing when you're renovating. You should know that beforehand. So how did we catch this, catch us by surprise? Just real Cliff Notes version.
I can tell you that from the bi-weekly meetings that we've been having with the architects and the construction companies, it appears as though this was just not included in the specification drawings as prepared.
To say it differently, it was either missed or the impact was underestimated. So we don't have a specific answer, but from Eccles, that's what we heard. So it was either missed, in the process, or when the interior lockers, if you will, think of stacks in a library, when those were removed, the visual impact of the bulkheads became more evident. So we've expressed our concern over it being either missed and/or underestimated. But at the end of the day, they exist and weren't part of the scope of work. So what we're pushing actively right now is to try to get that number as close to zero as it can possibly be. The only reason we brought forward an action item was to provide us with the ability to do that and not then be dependent upon waiting several weeks and being able to make progress. But, again, we view this as if it would be our own home. We're looking at finding ways to preserve and not expend additional dollars, and so we're hopeful through some potential options that we can get as close to that as possible.
That's fair. I hate change orders, and we talked about this when we approved this. And if you ask me, if Eccles missed it, then it should be on Eccles. And so let's just keep a little tally of those IOUs, right?
Absolutely.
Okay. Thank you.
Already done, and thank you.
Any further discussion? All those in favor say yes. Yes.
Yes.
Opposed? Motion carries. Dr. Campbell, Student Services?
Yes, item 6.01, the AFJR OTC trip to Parkersburg, West Virginia. This is a motion to approve the student attendance and application of the Student Discipline Code for the AFJR OTC students to travel on Saturday, February 10th, 2018. They're going away for the weekend, and they're going to participate in an annual drill competition as described in the attached form. There's no cost to the district. Do I have a second on the motion to approve?
Second.
Is there any discussion? All those in favor say yes.
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 Wait, but who seconded? Did we have a second?
Greg, second.
Okay.
Thanks, Mark.
I didn't hear.
All those opposed? Motion carries.
All right, item 6.02, the AFJROTC is also planning a trip to New Carlisle, Ohio. So the motion to approve the student attendance and application of the Student Discipline Code for those students to travel from Thursday, March 8th to Sunday, March 11th to participate in an annual drill competition. As described, they'll miss a couple days of school, and the cost of the district is estimated as $220 for gasoline for the district van. Motion to approve the expenditure and approval.
Second.
Is there any discussion? All those in favor say yes.
Yes.
Yes. Opposed? Motion carries.
Okay. And this group is being very active. They also have a trip planned to Langley Air Force Base. So motion to approve the student attendance and application of the Student Discipline Code for the AFJROTC students travel to Langley, Virginia from Thursday, April 19th to Sunday, April 22nd to visit the Air Force Base and the Pentagon, as described in the attachment. The cost of the district is estimated to be $150 for gasoline for the school van. Do I have a motion to approve this item?
Second.
Is there any discussion?
I have a quick question. When we say cost of district use of school van, who's driving that van?
The instructors.
So there's no compensation to the driver?
No, this cost is for fuel.
I didn't know if we had to have STA
Yeah.
or someone.
No, those are our instructors that are.
Okay. Thank you.
Any further discussion? All those in favor say yes. Yes. Opposed? Motion carries.
Item 6.04, the PIAA Competitive Spirit Team Championship in cheerleading. Motion to approve the student attendance and application of the Student Discipline Code for the Pine-Richland cheerleaders to travel to Hershey, Pennsylvania to participate in the PIAA State Competitive Championship from Thursday, January 18th to Sunday, January 20th, as described. The cost to the district of this one is $2,000 for lodging and transportation. So motion to approve the expenditure and the other items.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor say yes.
Yes.
Yes. Opposed? Motion carries.
Okay. And lastly, 6.05, motion to accept in accordance with Board Policy 702 for gifts, grants, and donations. And with sincere gratitude, the donation of a gently used 3D printer to the Eaton Hall Upper Elementary School from Ryan Priori. The retail cost of the printer is between $600 and $800 with a fair market value of about $500. So motion to accept the printer.
Second.
Very excited to see this also comes with the donation of his time and that training, which is probably worth more than the printer itself. Any further discussion? All those in favor say yes. Yes. Opposed? Motion carries. Thanks, Ben. Staff Services, Ms. Goebel, please.
Item 7.01, a motion to approve the personnel and supplemental items is attached.
Second.
Is there any discussion? All those in favor say yes.
Yes.
Yes. Opposed? Motion carries.
Item 7.02, motion to approve the affiliation agreement with Slippery Rock University of Pennsylvania as attached.
Second.
Is there any discussion? All those in favor say yes.
Yes.
Opposed? Motion carries.
7.03, it's a reminder, there's 2 upcoming Staff Service Committee meetings, the first being February 5th and the second March 19th.
Thank you, Ms. Goebel. Mr. Moy, Operational Services, please.
Item 801, Technology Equipment Disposal. Motion to approve the disposal of the technology equipment, hardware, and accessories to a recycling center in accordance with Policy 622 GASB Statement 34.
Second.
Is there any discussion?
I assume this is stuff that couldn't be reused or resold or
Correct, yes.
part of our old system that works so well.
This is the stuff that has plutonium. Okay.
All those in favor say yes.
Yes.
Yes. Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, Matt. Board business. Item 9.01 is just public information. The board committee organization. Dr. Mihalik, there is a first mover advantage to selecting committees. You did not get that. Yes. So I assure you next year you'll be able to express your preferences like we all did and come together. I thank you for filling in those spots that we had vacant after our process. You'll notice on the back of your cards, board members, Ms. Williams has, of course, already updated your cards. Can't tell the players without a scorecard, so thank you, Ms. Williams. As always, I say this whenever this comes up. It bears repeating now, if only for Dr. Mihalik's sake, that our committees are not silos of some specific form of power that committee has that the board doesn't have. All the board has the one power that we speak with one voice, but the committees form a useful structure for us to engage with the administration on a deeper level of conversation. Every committee meeting should be considered an invitation to the full board to participate, give input, and engage in the conversation. But we also have the committees there to ensure that we have adequate representation from the board and have that special burden of responsibility on those members to take a deeper look at those subject areas. So, thanks again, Matt.
Thank you.
Item 9.02, Dr. Campbell.
Yes, so my wife's a teacher with the Pine-Richland School District, and after discussions with the solicitor, Mr. Clare, we just wanted to clear up any conflict of interest issues and put that in the public record as to how we proceed with this in the future. It's Mr. Clare's recommendation that I refrain from involvement in board planning and strategy for turn off the mic here, sorry, for strategy for contract negotiations with the Pine-Richland Education Association due to my wife's membership. I am permitted to vote on the final contract, but I should also abstain from votes directly involving my wife's employment status or individual compensation such as supplemental pay. I just want to go on record saying I intend to fully comply with his recommendation, and I don't think it will impede the majority of my participation with these board's activities.
Thank you, Ben. Item 10.01, reports. I don't know if you want to go first, Dr. Miller?
Sure. I just wanted to provide, we haven't done this publicly since I've been here, but it seems as though this winter has been challenging, both from inclement weather and from temperatures, and I wanted to publicly, again, just summarize the decision-making process. So the first thing I would say is there's almost no responsibility I have which is as challenging as making decisions that involve the safety of our staff, students, parents, and so it is something taken very seriously. So the first part would be inclement weather. On days where the potential for poor weather exists, Mrs. Charney is our Transportation and Facility Use Coordinator. She is up at 4:30 in order to make a series of calls. Those calls are to PennDOT. We specifically know who's responsible for Pine and Richland Townships from PennDOT on the roads that they cover. She speaks to each manager responsible for road clearance in both Pine and in Richland. So we get information from those. They're responsible for clearing all the other roads that are not covered by PennDOT. She contacts 911 and is connected with the Northern Regional Police Department, who are able to relay to her information from those officers who are out on patrol in terms of road conditions. We also get direct feedback from STA, those members that are a part of their depot staff, and they specifically know drivers coming into the district from various locations that are outside of our district in order to get updates from them. So all of that is happening from about 4:30 to 4:50 or so in the morning. By 5 o'clock, I have a text message or some communication from her that's giving me that information. The challenge is that information reflects what's happening right now and also includes where they believe the roads will be in terms of condition at around 5:15, 5:30, which is when we need to make a decision in order to ensure that we're getting that information out before our first bus stop time. We have a student, our first student, picked up a little after 6 o'clock in the morning. That's the first part of the first route of the first bus. So we in a perfect situation, the weather is not actively happening, and it has happened, and we're trying to evaluate that. It's complicated, obviously, when temperatures are at or near zero, so there could be freeze-thaw. Ice is more challenging sometimes than snow to anticipate, but ultimately that's what occurs. The decision then that I make and communicate is based on the road conditions in Pine and Richland Townships. I'm aware of what happens on the regular news. I watch the news. I don't watch it for the weather forecast as much as I watch the news to hear about accidents. Accidents reported via the news are a good indicator to me of things that we might not hear or see from the staff that we have operating in the two townships. So I do that. In the event that if we're not sure, so if not sure, we delay. Once we delay, then we would recycle that process. So we don't just stop and then assume that we're going to be fine. We would begin the series of calls again to see if we would be able to have school, or we would need to move a delay to a cancellation. That happened, it happens rarely, but it happened before winter break not because most of our district wasn't clear, but because a couple main roads were not in good condition. And those main roads near our high school campus would have impacted the safe arrival to school. So inclement weather, that's the process. Again, I'm aware of other things that are happening in other districts, but that does not define a decision. It does sometimes define public perception of what should be a decision, and that can be an additional factor that adds stress and pressure to the decision that I need to make, and so I'm aware of it, but I try to make the decision based on the best information that I have around what's happening here. We could have a situation, again, even our northern border, they go north a fair amount, so you can have very different conditions at, for example, the north part of Seneca Valley or Mars than you do in the southern border of those areas. It just depends. But that is our process. I'm mindful that we have a number of student drivers at our high school, At the same time, I'm also mindful that we have public transportation through our buses available to them. So I'm aware of that, understand that, but try to make the decision based on the recommendations that are received. For cold, it is a different threshold criteria. We have had, and it predates my arrival here, -10 to -20 is around that time that the National Weather Service issues a wind chill advisory. And the difficult part about wind chill advisories and wind chill is that it varies depending on the wind, right? Which can ebb and flow over the course of mornings and time. I am extremely hesitant to ever cancel school the night before based on a forecast for wind chills that are at -10 or colder. Because there are times that I've done that, and you wake up in the morning and it's -7, or it's -8, or it's -2, and you cannot unring the bell of the delay, and most importantly, you cannot unring the bell once a decision to cancel has been made. And so I look at that threshold, and I do believe a criteria or some sort of concrete number is helpful in that. Most recently, we had a situation where much colder temperatures were forecast, and so I did announce a delay the night before, but I wanted to hold on a decision to cancel until the morning of, just to confirm that nothing had changed. I didn't expect it, but again, my thought process was, I've announced the delay, buys us a little time, confirm the decision in the morning, and then make it. There was a lot of I shouldn't say a lot, there was some vocal dissatisfaction, and social media impacts that. It also impacts it when 400 other businesses, school districts, et cetera, have announced a decision to close. And sometimes people want a closure here for no other reason than others have made the decision to close. It does not mean that I care less about the safety or well-being of our children than other school districts. It merely means I cannot unring the decision to close and therefore take it seriously enough that I want to wait until the next morning. So that's sort of the game plan around both inclement weather or cold. Even as it is with cold, I receive some feedback that the decision-making is inconsistent. It is not. It is, I'll use this Wednesday. Right now, if you check, and I triangulate with 3 different not news-related things, but scientific-related weather, Wednesday morning's predicted around -10 wind chill. Tomorrow it'll be a little different, and it'll be a little different on the morning on Wednesday. So I'm going to wait, see what happens. If it's -9, we come into school. You know, if it's -11, then I would call a delay. I mean, that's generally how I would apply that threshold. So I just wanted to share that. If there are any questions, I'd be happy to answer them. But I think ultimately, again, it works. It's not always an easy decision to make, and particularly for snowy roads, if we're not sure, I would make a decision to delay to try to buy a little extra time for road crews to do what they do. Thank you for that.
Thank you, and timely. Any other updates from the board?
So that's something that we want to discuss as far as a threshold for Dr. Miller and the administration to consider. I happen to probably be against 99% of the population. I think -10-degree wind chill and our buses run is not too cold for kids to come to school, but I also understand that some parents may. So I would be more inclined to keep school open because most businesses stay open, but when it gets that cold, that it is not an unexcused absence for parents to keep their children at home if they so choose at that time. And I think we could leave the choice more up to the parents in that aspect, but leave the school open. I see no reason to close the school when it's -10-degree wind chill factor here. Everywhere I go to work is still open on those days. And again, I understand, especially smaller kids, things like that, I can understand that. But for the most part, now that we're on propane buses, it's not as much of a concern with the buses running. I think we have a few diesels still. I'm not 100% sure of that.
Just a few.
So I understand that there's some concern with that, but the buses in general are going to fire up and run to temperatures well colder than that. And I don't think that with what we have available to us, especially in this district, with what I witnessed on the actual day that we had that delay and then a cancellation, the number of kids I saw outside playing tells me that I think that, I think we can keep the school open. I certainly think that the buildings can remain open. Now, if we have a condition where we lose heat or we have a freeze problem with water, I understand all those. But I think in general, I would be inclined to keep the school open, and at that point, 2-hour delay, but not cancel.
You're looking at me, so I would say this, it is interesting, right? So on the one hand, it's not something that typically rises to the level of board policy, because it's certainly implementation. I don't actually disagree. I think my son was out there playing, so, that's, but of course, it's very different at 6 a.m. We can go back to that first bus time. 6:10, dark is very different than 2 o'clock in the afternoon. Things feel a lot better. Ask any sailor about how the weather can change that way. Nor do I know that we can sort of unilaterally say, well, you can cut school today, we won't count it. There may be state issues that we haven't considered there. I would say finally, ultimately, even if we step in and do this, it might not be the next cold delay, but within about 2 or 3, everyone will forget, and it's still going to be on this guy. And that's probably the main reason I'm hesitant to override it, is because I'm not going to be in the office with Ms. Williams taking the phone calls. And so there's a lot of judgment and experience that go with that. Those are just my initial reactions.
Well, is there a threshold that's different across different schools? Is our threshold the right threshold? That's a question.
So here's what I would say. It's my experience that if we want to consider a question like this, it would be better to do so for the future, not for the immediate present, because then public opinion can sway thinking, and I think that's usually not a good idea. Student Services would be a natural committee to talk about issues affecting students. Knowing our community, we would probably want to have some expertise speaking to the dangers or impact of being outside at bus stops for prolonged periods of time, depending on different temperatures, because our community will expect that kind of thorough investigation. Other districts don't necessarily have a threshold. What I would say, though, is they're probably more apt to be driven by peer pressure than any other factor. So people start delaying or canceling, they delay and cancel, not based on a district criteria, but rather just based on, you don't want to be the only one not to delay or cancel if everybody's delaying or canceling, or people become frustrated with you. So maybe we could revisit this, when it's not such a right now question.
July.
Yeah. 92 degrees.
Thanks, Greg. I did want to mention on behalf of Ms. Christine Misbach, who could not join us this evening, she has posted an update on profs for the board and the public on the website. I encourage you to explore it. Most importantly, the profs' strategic plan, their 5-year strategic plan, which they approved last year. Good governance looks similar across different types of organizations, and that's something that I think you can expect to see reference to in their very deliberate actions over the coming years. I would also be remiss at the suggestion of Director Kashani to mention and remind our community that you can donate through the United Way to profs, or direct through your employer's United Way program. And more information is available on profs' website. Any other updates? We'll move to our second recognition of visitors. If anyone would like to address the board, they may do so at this time. Seeing how there is none, we will move to adjourn this meeting and move to an executive session to cover negotiations update, student matter, personnel matter, and litigation. Thank you all. Have a good evening.